The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service presents Let's Talk Finance, a feature exploring the various elements of the economic program.
Welcome again to Let's Talk Finance here on Nationwide 90 FM. My name is George Davis, and my guest this week, she's been with me for the past 2 weeks, or 3 weeks strong, Melanie Williams. Welcome again, Melanie.
Thank you so much for having me, George.
Melanie is the National Financial Inclusion Coordinator working out of the Bank of Jamaica. And for the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about the financial inclusion strategy, how it impacts the regular person, ordinary Jamaicans, of which she and I are members, in case you are frowning at that descriptor. And she's discussed how it affects MSMEs, those doing agriculture, those in light, heavy industry, how it dovetails with the other plans that the Ministry of Finance has implementing right now to develop the country and develop the economy, and of course to lead to economic growth, which is the ultimate goal. We continue to talk about financial inclusion this week, and I ask Melanie, in the year that you have been managing affairs from your office, that coordinating office, what would you highlight as the successes, and I won't say failures, I'll only say challenges that the implementation of the strategy has encountered?
Well, successes have been in terms of the ability to build out a very strong network of public sector entities that are committed to the financial inclusion strategy. Actually seeing changes that are expressed in the regulatory space being translated into the development space. For example, coordination between BOJ and the Development Bank of Jamaica, that increasing coordination, that revision of how we treat with matters such as risk weighting of the partial credit guarantee that can in fact improve greater access to credit for businesses. We've also seen a change in the conversation whereby we've brought the regulators, the public sector entities into closer dialogue with the Jamaicans who are to be the beneficiaries of the strategy. Through the National Consumers League, there's been a lot of frank discussion. There's been discussion with a number of industry associations that allowed us to reframe certain action items and design specific policy steps that are to be taken. A major gain has been, for example, in the world of consumer protection. We have benefited from the involvement of our partners in the U.S. Treasury, but we've also benefited from the involvement of the Consumer Affairs Commission, as well as the National Consumers League, the Jamaica Bankers Association, the industry representatives for the microfinance institutions, to really understand what are the most critical factors that have to be addressed as we seek to actually create a much more comprehensive consumer protection framework, which is in train, and that is to be finalized during the course of this year in terms of the policy proposals that will go to the ministry. Another great win we've had is through the leadership of the Ministry of Education, if I may say again, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information.
There you go.
Right. And we've had great involvement from their LEG Secretariat. We've had involvement from the Heart Trust. We've also had involvement indeed from the Ministry of Finance, where we actually were able, through the help of the Inter-American Development Bank, to create a national financial literacy action plan and an intermediate strategy, which would of course have budgetary implications, but will see us targeting our youth through a segmented approach from primary to secondary to tertiary level, because it's a long-term investment. And of course, we've seen it on the ground in terms of how we measure our indicators. Greater number of access points for persons seeking to access financial services, the agent banking regulations having been passed. We also see the use of electronic retail payment products, the continued use of those types of instruments in the marketplace. And we see our young people becoming more aware, because both in terms of the alpha generation, as we call them, which is all our children who are born post-2000, as well as our millennials, they are the ones who are digital natives, and they are changing the conversation, changing how we do financial business. And so we've seen a shift in the psyche of the financial institutions themselves to better understand that population, because we have a very young, dynamic population. And the greatest gain of all is the celebration of the entrepreneur as a central point around which the economy has to be built, and that's driving a lot of the policy development now.
Before we come to the challenges, though, let me interject. You spoke, I think it was in the first segment, you mentioned the benefit of Jamaica moving towards becoming a digital society? I think your phrase was digital economy, but
Yes.
I'm looking broadly to say digital society. How does the advent of the digital society and so many of Jamaica's population being au fait and in step with the latest technological gadgets and the latest technological advancement, helping them to understand things of the nature that we are discussing. How do you think that benefit redounds to give an impetus to the plans to let financial inclusion strategy bed in to the Jamaican economy and development?
I think the main gains to be had from a digital economy are efficiency, greater efficiency, the ease with which you can actually enter into discussions around business, negotiate terms, finalize terms, the ability to have your electronic signature recognized. You know, we have the Electronic Transactions Act, and have that being used as a tool to actually move the business along faster. It's also important when we consider the flows of funds. How are we able to facilitate that within the jurisdiction as we continue to look at other mechanisms such as revising, having a risk-based framework for anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism, so that we recognize different financial products have different risk thresholds, if you will, based on their product design, their targeted audience, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all. The digital economy is forcing us to have greater nuance. It's forcing a greater understanding of the role of information and technology and speed, efficiency, and also fast resolution.
And of course, very, very critical, record keeping and then accessing those records real time.
Exactly. And having them stored electronically
Yes.
so that you can access them. What it means for the Jamaican, of course, is that you now bank differently. You now do business differently in terms of payment. You now go and you are self-directed in terms of how you seek to actually engage with your consumer, how you seek to communicate your message and your brand, and then how do you seek to actually facilitate their payment so that your customer is now communicating to you in a different way, and you therefore continue to adapt. So that's part of the change that we expect to have happen as we move towards a digital economy, which means that we need to have our products move alongside that continued agility that you see.
All right. Beyond those, though, I don't want to say failures again. I want to say challenges. Some things that you've noticed in the implementation that you think you could be further along. Were those removed or certain kinks ironed out? What would you put your finger on as those challenges, limitations then to the successful implementation, or even more speedily?
Right. The challenges and the limitations we continue to face are the within our public sector stakeholders, if you will, the issues associated with resources, the capacity
people or otherwise,
people as well as ideas to respond to the needs of the market, the shift in thinking. We see some of our public sector entities being very far ahead in the curve in terms of already conceptualizing how they're adapting to this new world, this new space. MICAF, Ministry of Finance, a number of entities are like that. DBJ, we need to have more of that. The importance of proportionate regulation, the importance of not having a one-size-fits-all regulation, and also properly placing the creation of a regulatory framework in the context of the business of the market development strategy, because that's what financial inclusion is designed to achieve. Another impediment we've found, and this is something that we're actively trying to remedy, is getting the message out there. It's the communication, making sure that the average Jamaican understands that financial inclusion is not about charity. It's not about giving away money, but empowering our businessmen and women in the space already so that they have access to proper financing. And we bring all competent businesses and all financial institutions that want to have proper formal systems in place in the same environment so that they can compete fairly and equitably for the access to the consumer. So it's about competition and about changing the frame of reference. Those have been our major challenges, making sure that we actually are able to move ahead with resources. And I think thirdly, we need to continue to work closely with the private sector. We have seen that as the economy has improved, it seems to have caught some of our participants by surprise.
Yes.
They didn't think that the change would be sustainable, but it's showing 4 years now, continued economic growth. We can now actually start to think of a different future. And so now you're seeing businesses adjust as well as the financial institutions adjust. And we want to encourage more of that. And hopefully it will continue to increase in terms of the speed of research and design and development of new products so that they can meet the needs. So those are the challenges that we face.
Are there other countries of a similar profile as Jamaica which have embarked on financial inclusion embedding as we have done and have achieved significant successes that you could look on and say, well, based on that blueprint, we are trending in the right direction?
Well, we know of within the region that you have a national financial inclusion strategy being implemented in Mexico as well as in Peru. But Jamaica remains the first in the English-speaking region to actually have such a strategy. And they too are at the earliest stages of realizing some of the dividends from implementation. Where we stand is that certainly greater gains have been made in Mexico, for example, through their secure transactions regime, and that's something that we're learning from through the involvement of the International Finance Corporation and MICAF's role in coordinating that sharing of knowledge. You know, there's been a close collaboration between Bank of Jamaica, MICAF, DBJ, and the IFC that allows for us to now see how we can better leverage secure transactions in a different way so that we can create an environment that actually encourages financial institutions to actually engage in new product offerings, more factoring, more use of asset-based lending products. These are some of the earliest thoughts. We want to get to where Mexico is, I think,
Yes.
in terms of that change. But certainly in the Caribbean, we should feel very comfortable and confident that Jamaica being the first mover, so to speak, in the financial inclusion space is also the first mover to implement in this way.
Yes.
Given our regional constraints and realities.
So as we pull closer to 2030, Vision 2030, I'm not tying you to any dates, but I'm just saying for the purpose of the conversation, what about 2025, when what you are doing now, what is being done now where financial inclusion is concerned, when those take root, round about 2025, 2030, that's when the real benefits will be seen, because as you would admit now, given that the implementation is only young, the benefits that you could hold up to say, here are the clear signposts that financial inclusion has achieved, that won't be realized now. It is later down the road.
It is certainly going to be a measured pace of realization of benefits, of dividends, if you will.
Yes.
One of the key changes we'd like to see is, of course, greater participation in our stock market. We'd like to see greater investment flows, more angel investors coming into the space to help our micro entrepreneurs. We would envision a world within which our microfinancial institutions are fully regulated in the sense of having a regulatory framework that benefits them and benefits their legitimate business in the space. We would also like to see a more robust consumer protection model and different types of products. We want to see a greater uptake of digital payment mechanisms and greater confidence in using them. There tends to be a level of fear, and so a lot of we're going to invest our activities in the next year and a half we'll be doing is educating our population about the challenges, the threats, as well as the benefits to be had about using the technology and how they can better understand and leverage it to their business needs. So a lot of this is going to be change in thinking, change in behavior, and at the same time, change in conversation. We have to meet the needs of our clients, so to speak, and our clients in this case would be the population of Jamaica.
Excellent. Melanie, you've been a wonderful guest. You've been very articulate. You've been very clear, and I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed listening to you.
Thank you again
Please
for
come
having
again.
me. Thank you for having me, George.
Excellent.
You've been very kind. Thank you.
Very well. Melanie Williams, she is the National Financial Inclusion Coordinator working out of the office of the Bank of Jamaica. And she has been my guest for this program and the previous two on Let's Talk Finance. We've looked at the financial inclusion strategy. That's it. Goodbye.
That was Let's Talk Finance, brought to you by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service.